father was, you had Isaac and Jacob. You had Abraham was his grandfather. His great-grandfather would have been Terah. Terah was an idol maker at the same time that Nimrod was alive and prospering in Babylon. Are you following me? Now, what we're going to see here is an encounter in the days ahead of us with the same spiritual entities that Jacob was encountering here. Now, we looked last night at the numerical value of that word Gogolet, and it was 466. It just happens that 466 is a gematria or numerical value of another number in the Strongs, 5497 in your Strongs. That word is sut. And sut means a garment, clothing, if you will. And in its context here, it means clothing that would be fit for a royal or kingly individual, one who is a ruler, one who has authority. And in this instance, what you're seeing is that while they're cutting this covenant, raising up this marker for the generations that are to come, there's an exchanging of positions that's going to take place. I will show you that it literally happened. Are you with me? Just like with Abraham and Sarah. He was Abram Sarai. When Yah cuts a covenant with him, they exchange names. Yah takes the hey out of the Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, and inserts it into Abraham and Sarah. The Hey inferring the breath of Yahweh, the revelation of Yahweh that would be revealed through those individuals to the rest of the world. You see the exact same things happening here in this particular Torah portion. And while I was looking at this, I was reminded regarding this exchanging of garments that's taking place, because Jacob is exchanging a garment of bondage and mourning for a garment of praise. Are you following me? Well, it just so happens Isaiah 61 talks about us putting on the garment of praise for the what? Garment of mourning. And if you go back and look at it, we're promised a wedding tiara, a crown that would be given to a bride in the process of that exchanging of position, exchanging those garments. And we're told in the New Testament to put on Messiah. He becomes that garment that we're clothed with. Do y'all see that? Well, it happens that Yeshua in Luke chapter 4 quotes Isaiah 61. He says, the Spirit of Yah is upon me. And he goes into this dissertation where literally he quotes Isaiah 61 talking about that exchanging of garments. And if you go back and look at his execution, what is he forced to put on? A scarlet robe. Did you know the scarlet robe was to remind you of a harlot's vocation? Throughout the Torah, go back and look at the scarlet harlot, if you will, if you like that wordplay in Revelation. The whore of Babylon is clothed in scarlet. Well, Yeshua is forced to put on a scarlet's robe so that he could exchange the garment, take the penalty for the adulterous bride. Y'all see that? And this is what's happening now when this witness heap is being raised. The covenant that's being cut is something that's extremely powerful, and we're going to see some of that in our days. Now, this witness heap and pillar, the word pillar is 4676, matzebah, meaning a pillar or a stump, something that was set upright. As a matter of fact, out of the stump or pillar of Jesse, the Messiah came. And you and I are grafted into that same stump, if you will. Y'all see that? That word matzebah can also mean a garrison for a host or an army. And as we learned last night, Jacob is going to have an encounter with the army of Yah. It's also, matzebah is also closely related to a word you're all familiar with if you celebrate the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Passover, the word matzah, which is a feminine noun that means unleavened bread, and that bread is connected to the bride's redemption where she is taken in her adulterous condition and redeemed. It costs the life of the Redeemer, by the way. She's redeemed, and when she comes out, she has no leaven in her. There is no other entity on creation that can take a whore and make her a virgin. Are you hearing what I'm saying? No other religious organization, no other religious group, no other cult that practices worship to a fallen God. Allah can't do that. That's why they're looking for 70 virgins on the other side, because they ain't got none in their spiritual worship. Hello. I said that. Let me issue my standard disclaimer here. Now, the redeemed bride will be purged of all the leaven that is within her, being prepared for her wedding at Shavuot. Now, right off the bat here, in this one verse, you're seeing that there's a shadow picture of Israel leaving Egypt. They're leaving Padan Aram here, but they're also going to rehearse this same thing when they leave Egypt. And the place where the bones of their dead for 430 years had lain. Well, that's exactly the shadow picture you see of Laban. The whited sepulchre full of dead men's bones, well, so was Egypt. Because Laban is seen there prominently while they're getting ready to leave Egypt, because they're forced to endure this bondage and hard labor making bricks. And the word for bricks is Laban. So you can see the connection there again. Do y'all see that now? Israel becomes a chaste virgin upon leaving. How? By leaving sin, leaven, sin behind her. This is going to be a shadow picture of our day when the outcasts of Israel will once again leave the false religions, leave the Labans behind, leave the Egypt behind, leave Babylon behind. Are you following me? The false religions that are full of dead men's bones and strip sin from us. Now, if you read this, it tells us that Laban is saying to Jacob, and they mutually assent regarding this, that this is going to become a boundary line. Watch out now. Turn to your neighbor and tell him, you can't miss this. We have to look now real closely at Genesis 31, verse 52. Let me read this for you. This heap will be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. Now, let me just back up and just assert something real quickly. Laban is a shadow picture of the carnal fleshly man, or carnal fleshly religious Christian, while Jacob is a shadow picture of one who was given to the flesh but's making a transition, and he's shortly becoming a spirit-led man. So there's a boundary that's between the two. And if you want to serve Yahweh, you can't cross over that boundary. So those of you that have been accustomed to riding a fence, say hey, amen right here, have compromised the boundary lines. And did you know that there's a prohibition in Torah against moving boundaries? And did you know that, by the way, let me hit this a second. Did you know that time is a boundary? Hello? Did you know that time was set up to govern the affairs of man while man's in this physical realm? And if that's the case, every increment of time, which happens to be minutes and hours and days, are boundaries. And so the Sabbath is a boundary. And if you change the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day, you've just moved a boundary. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. Now let me read this to you in the King James English, but I want to sort of basically give you the Hebrew translation. Ed Hagal, there's that word gal. Remember we were just talking about it, the heap. Ed Hagal hazeh va'edah hamatzava imanilo evor eleka et Hagal hazeh. There's that Hagal again. Va'imata lo ta'avor ele et Hagal. There it is again. Y'all seeing this? Hazeh. Va'et hamatzava hazot lera'ah. I wanted you to notice something. Inserted in there in several conspicuous places is that Aleph and Tav. See it right here? There's Aleph and Tav right here. There's Aleph and Tav here. There's Aleph and Tav here. In 4 different locations, the Aleph and Tav is stuck right in there. Now, everybody knows it's Aleph and Tav, the Alpha and Omega, the beginning, the end, the first and last. Now, what I want you to pay attention, you know that place was called the witness heap, right? This first word, ed, is the word that's translated as a witness. And then you have ha, that is a word for thee, and gal is the word that we were looking at, witness, heap. And then you have ha again, the, and zay. Well, the King James English and Hebrew render that word zay as this. However, if you look at it, you'll notice That first phrase, I'll read it to you again. Ed Hagal Hazeh can be written. Ed, witness. Witness the stone, because remember, the heap, the gall was also known as a stone, right? Witness the stone, the lamb. Did y'all see that? Ed et Hagal Hazeh. Witness the stone, the lamb. So right there's the lamb who was also the Eben Ezer, the stone who became your helper. The stone, the rock that followed them in the wilderness, that's the one that was the boundary set up between them, who is also the boundary between the fleshly man and the spirit man. Now pay attention here. As I said, that Aleph and Tav is connected throughout that rest of that sentence to the Gal and the Zay. So what you're seeing here, something about this boundary line is pretty important, simply because Jacob, although Jacob was accused by his by his uncle of taking his daughters from him, the main thing Laban's upset about is the fact that Jacob stole his house gods. Turn to your neighbor and tell him, them house gods will get you in trouble. Not that I've ever had any. Well, I would suggest after today's teaching that you examine your house to see if you got any house gods in there, okay? So now we got to look at Genesis 31, verse 30, so that we can understand what's being said here about these house gods. Because basically, Laban asked Jacob, why have you stolen my gods? Now, let me just remind you who Laban was. And later on, he even references, he asked Jacob to swear to this covenant, and Jacob swears by his father Isaac and the God of his father Isaac and Abraham. Laban swears by his father Nahor and his father's father Terah. And they were all given to idolatrous practices. Swearing by two different gods. Can y'all see that? You need to be careful what you swear by. Let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. Amen. Now, we need to look at that word stolen. How much time do I have on this particular CD? The word stolen there, turn to your neighbor and tell them, this is going to rock your world. Hold on to your seat. The word for stolen is 1589, pronounced ganav. It means, of course, to steal, to sweep something away by stealth. But if you'll notice, right in the middle of that is the word gan for the word Eden, garden. Do y'all see that? And then you have on the end of it, av, which is the word for father, ganav. Now what I want to just ask you something. Is it possible that Laban is accusing Jacob of stealing the gods that were fathered in Eden? Fathered in the Garden of Eden. Say that 3 times. Fathered in the Garden of Eden. I believe that's what Jacob is being accused of stealing, because these house gods were representations of the fallen ones, and they were fathered in Eden in Genesis chapter 3. Do y'all see that? What was happening here is that they're establishing a boundary line, Jacob and Laban, aren't they? Well, those same fallen ones that were fathered in Eden, after which Laban had patterned his house gods, had also crossed over a boundary line, the same boundary line, the carnal flesh, so that they could have a vehicle in order to be introduced into the physical realm. That's what's happening here. That's what's called a pregnant pause. That's when it would have been an opportunity for you to shout, say, oh, praise Yah, I got that. Now, what you're seeing here is that this boundary line separates the serpent seed and that of the seed of the woman through which the Messiah would come. Are you understanding this? Now, if you want the rest of this teaching, you'll have to tune in to track 2 of this CD. Thank you for listening. Shalom Aleichem. Y'all enjoying yourself? Praise Yahweh. I'm telling you, this Torah portion is so replete with the mystery and hidden things. If you have not looked at Vayishlach, like we're seeing it here tonight at Manna from Heaven Ministries, my name's David Matthews, and we are going to just help to introduce you to some of the hidden manna, the things that Yah has revealed for those who will dig in the Torah and get this stuff out. It's not going to be there on the surface. If you're just a casual seeker, if you're not one of those that diligently seek Him, you will never.